Okay, here we go. We're on step 6. Basically, what is step 3? Step 3 is a decision that I make that's going to save my life. And what does it say in step 3 in the 12 at 12? It says, in fact, the whole effectiveness of the AA program is going to rest on how well and earnestly I come to this decision. So not just for the substance, okay? For my quality of life will depend on how well and earnestly I learn to turn more and more over to the care of God. It's one thing to turn over the substance, and it's another thing to turn your will and your life over. And I really like that piece in step 3. The whole effectiveness of this depends on how well I do that. Well, what is turning my will and my life over to God? Well, we've been discussing that, but what is it? Well, first of all, I have to quit playing God. It doesn't work, period. Next, God is the boss and I am his employee, right? I have to get the simple relationship straight. It's not a theoretical relationship. It's an actual relationship that I am submissive to God. He now runs the show and I work for him here on planet Earth. When I go to work for Jeremy's Framing, I don't go to work for Jeremy's Framing. I play the role that I'm assigned when I go to work at the framing company. But I really bring God's vision and his will into my job. And I'm a father, right? So when I'm being a father, I am playing the role of a dad. And I try to bring the vision of God's will into all of my activities. I always talk about step 10. Where does it actually happen? Where am I turning my will and my life over? It's the step 10 process. It is, I continue to watch for myself, selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, boom, I ask God. I talk to someone immediately. I make amends quickly if I have harmed anyone, and then I resolutely turn my thoughts to someone we can help. That is your step 10 clear-cut directions. What am I actually doing in that clear-cut direction? I am being aware of my defects of character. Boom. Step 6, like we're talking about tonight. Step 6, in my opinion, for anybody new, anyone struggling, or anyone coming back, if you don't understand step 6, really, really pay attention, because this step will save your life and it will give you the ability to start really turning your will and your life over, and it'll make a big, huge difference in your life. And then you'll see what I mean as we do 6 and 7 over the next 3 weeks. Step 7 is way different than step 6. Step 7 is actually a surrender to God. And step 6 is I'm learning how to surrender. Step 6 is humility through learning through pain and humiliation. Step 7 is I have a desire to seek and do God's will. Different kinds of humility. Okay, so I'm just going to talk quickly about that before we get going. So in the beginning of the book, in the doctor's opinion, it says 3 things that I need to know as an alcoholic right off the bat in the first 2 pages. 1, that I'm supposed to help other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. That is the basis of this rapidly growing fellowship. So working with another alcoholic is paramount. And then on the next page it says we work out our solution on the spiritual and altruistic plane. Not just solution to me removing a substance that causes me major issues in my life, but I mean me removing me. The selfish self-centeredness also comes through all 3 of those things. And I want to talk about altruism for a second here. So altruism is a 3-phase thing, okay? And if I'm looking at the direction, it says we work out our solution on the spiritual and altruistic plane. Spiritual means God. I have some disciplines that I try to connect with God with. Prayer and meditation are the primary means. And what is altruism? Well, altruism means, definition, unselfishly devoting oneself to the welfare, happiness, and well-being of other people. And that is like, you get to a place where you're just doing this unselfishly and you just want to help people. But when I first start doing that when I get here, I'm not doing it unselfishly. For me, when I started doing the altruistic acts, because all it was the altruistic action. I'd go and pour coffee because I was fucking told to. I'd go and talk to a newcomer because my sponsor told me to. wasn't like I was all happy about this altruistic shit that you guys were telling me. I was more fearful for my life than I was happy about doing altruism, I'll tell you that. But I did it as a necessity to try to stay alive. Well, there's nothing more selfish behind altruism than me just wanting it to stay alive. I'm doing out of pure selfishness. But then what happens after I keep doing this altruistic act, then after a while, it starts changing and I start going, holy shit, I feel better when I do these altruistic acts. I pick up the phone when somebody calls me, even though I'm looking at the phone going, fuck, I don't really want to fucking pick it up. The hockey game's on right now. Then I'm like, fuck, okay. So then I pick it up and I'm like, hello. And I talk to a struggling alcoholic and I'm reluctant at first. But by the end of the conversation, I'm like, fuck, that was pretty cool. I feel pretty good now. I don't really want to chair meetings, but then I start chairing them and I'm like, fuck, I feel really cool chairing meetings, And so I gain momentum in altruism. But I'm not really doing it like altruistically yet. I'm still doing it very selfishly. Why? Because I want to feel good. So then when I feel like shit, I pick up a phone and I'm like, I'm calling a sponsee, I'm calling another member because I feel like shit. And then I get on the phone with somebody and then I put the phone down and I'm like, fuck, I knew it. I knew I'd feel better. So then I'm doing this altruistic act because it makes me feel good. But there's still such a component of selfishness there. But it's better than what it was when it was a necessity, when I was totally selfish doing the act. So then I keep doing this, I keep doing this, I keep doing this. And I get to a point where I'm just like, the phone rings, it's a struggling alcoholic. I don't even question whether I pick it up. I pick it up as quick as I can. Somebody asks me to speak at a speaker meeting. I speak without saying anything. I am saying, yes, the time is open and it's yours. Anything. Somebody needs to be helped moved. Then I'm like, okay, I grab a couple guys and we're helping someone move. It doesn't matter what it is after a while. You start gaining in this altruism, and that's kind of the goal, is that third phase. I'm doing this without thought. Somebody's struggling in a room and you can see them struggling. As soon as the meeting's over, it's like beeline it over there and try to talk to them, right? You try to help them. You give them your number and you're actually giving a fuck about these people. Now we're getting into real altruism. That's what the goal is, to get to a place where you're actually altruistic, unselfishly devoting yourself to the other people without question. And hopefully, a lot. Because there's so many gifts there, but most people don't get there. So now let's talk about humility quickly. Well, humility is the exact same thing as what I'm talking about. Humility also has 3 phases. The first phase is humiliation. Think about when you first got your ass kicked enough to walk into the rooms of AA. You're humiliated. No one wants to walk into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous or Cocaine Anonymous. It's very humiliating. And then admitting that you're powerless and accepting this God in step 2, it's pretty humiliating. And there's a lot of humiliating when you look at a lot of your actions and then you talk to another person and God about these things that you've done. That's pretty humiliating. And then there's also humility through pain and suffering. So there's humility through humiliation. There's humility through pain. And then there's genuine humility, which is a desire to seek and do God's will. And what step 6 is, it's a combination of humiliation, humility, and pain and suffering humility. But as you go through the pain and suffering and you try and you try and you try and you try to change and you try to change, and sometimes it feels like you're banging your head against the wall. You keep trying and you keep doing it and you keep trying. You keep picking up the phone. You keep doing inventories. You keep working on your anger. You keep working on your sex conduct. You keep working on all these things. And then eventually, you don't need to work on them anymore. You're living in God's will and you start understanding that there's no better way than God's will. And you're not fighting these things like you used to. And then it changes. And you have a sincere desire to seek and do God's will. It's not like, you have to struggle not to do something anymore. I might have to struggle to keep my mouth shut sometimes and really bite my tongue because I really want you to know what I got to say and I fucking fight it. But after a while, I know opening my mouth is the worst solution and you don't even need to hear what I have to say. and I have a desire to do God's will, and you're not even going to know that I want to say something because I don't really care, because I understand you have your own opinions too. So it changes, okay? Things change, and you change. And when you get to this third phase of altruism and you get the third phase of humility, now you're working with real God's grace. Now you're going to see major growth. Most people are going to not work this stuff really very heavily. And then they're going to struggle for a long time and wonder what the fuck we're doing. So I'm here to tell you, you don't have to struggle. You go through the pain and you just move forward. And there's going to be pain in your life anyway, okay? So that doesn't matter. Life's not fucking easy. There's going to be pain. Do you want the pain of moving forward and growing? Or do you want the unremitting suffering pain of fucking doing what's easy and still trying to seek selfish desires? And then risk drinking again, because this is why we drank, right? So step 6 is like the pinnacle of the change. It beats you until you like fucking surrender to it. I call it the step 3 surrender step is what step 6 is. And the principle behind step 6 is willingness, because it takes persistence. And what is this? Willingness and persistence? Well, step 10 principle is perseverance. Means you're fighting through. So, let's get this started. Step 3 prayer. I'm going to read the step 3 prayer, and then we're going to kind of roll along from there. Page 63. We are now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, so that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, so that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help with thy power, thy love, thy way of life. May I do thy will always. So again, God, I offer. This is an offering in step 3. I'm offering myself. It's not a full commitment to God, but I'm making an offer to God. Build with me and do with me as thou wilt. So God will start doing that. And then there's a lot of pain involved. And part of that process has to come in the 4 and 5. Because you got to see what and who you really are. And you got to want to change. And when you sincerely make this decision to build with me, God, as you will, we talked about renovation. You're a renovation project. God's going to come inside of you and he's going to knock down all the drywall. He's going to smash everything else that's going to be left inside of you are 2x4s and floor joists and roof joists. The rest of it is all going to be rebuilt. And this is what the program does. It rebuilds you. Relieve me of the bondage of self. That's the problem. Selfish self-centeredness. That what we think is the root of our troubles. I'm the problem. I'm in bondage of self. Everything's about me. And I got to relinquish that. And all my defects of character that we're going to talk about are tied to me and my defects. Take away my difficulties, so that victory over them may bear witness to those we would help with thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. Take away my difficulties, or take away my defects of character. And when you look at the real picture, my defects of character caused me all my difficulties in my fucking life. All my joy and all my discontentment and all the bullshit that I suffer from, the difficulties that I look at in my life, they come from my difficulties of my defects of character. So God, relieve me of the defects, and then my difficulties in life are not even there anymore. And as it says, as victory over them may bear witness. Well, again, it sounds like a fight. Where's the fight? Well, it's in year 6 and year 10. I gotta fucking work hard at the elimination of this shit, and I can't just do it by myself. I need God's help, but I gotta be the one on guard, and I gotta be the one bringing these things to God, and I gotta be willing to relinquish them. In the fight, I gotta lay down these weapons. These are weapons that I've been using my whole life. But to me, they look like personality traits when I get here. They look like defense mechanisms, you could say. But they're actually hurting me and they hurt you. And where does this fight actually take place that step 6 is talking about here? It takes place in step 10. That's why step 10 principle is perseverance. Perseverance means to fight through. So I'm doing step 6 in my 10. I have enough willingness and honesty to try repeatedly step 6 on all my faults without reservation. And then I indeed come a long way spiritually. This is the step that launches you to the next level of this shit. Okay? Launches you into step 7. And when you launch into actually what step 7 is, then you're living in God's will. You're not always going to live there. You're going to fall into step 6, but the goal is to live in step 7. And right now, if you think step 6 and 7 are the same, I'm just telling you they're not. And then we'll find out more about that over the next 3 sessions. And I will convince you without a shadow of a doubt how different they are. Because they're not even close. Step 6, I'm learning about humility. Step 7, I've surrendered to humility. And then I'll finish off the step 3 prayer. Bear witness to those I would help with thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. So the whole purpose of what we're doing here isn't for me to get happy. But anyone new who came here, you probably want to get happy, and that's kind of why you're here. I'm telling you that the purpose is not about happiness. It says it right here, so that you are better service to God, that you may better do his work and his will. And as you start doing his work and his will and doing the altruistic acts that are selfish at first, and then they get into the second phase of altruism, which are they start making you feel good. And then later down the road, you're just doing them because it's the right thing to do and you feel good. And as you get to this level of surrender, you're happy. There's lots of joy and there's lots of happiness. But what I want to point out here is may I. At the stage at step 3, it's just a may I. Means it's a possibility. And why I'm pointing all that out to you is because step 7 prayer is much different and it's way more of a surrender to God prayer. This one is an offering and it's a may I. But it's a willingness to relinquish these difficulties that cause my own failure in my life. Okay? So now I'm going to tie in a little bit of step 4 before we get moving too fast. On page 64. Halfway down the page. Let's just read this. Actually, we'll start at the first paragraph. Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. So it's about regular inventory. Step 10 is inventory. It's a spot check inventory. Boom, boom, all day long. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding, fact-facing process. Is it an effort to discover the truth about stock and trade? One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods. What things am I using that don't serve me? And what things am I using that don't serve you? If they ain't serving us, then I got to get rid of these things promptly without regret. So I got to do inventory. I got to call my sponsor and I got to look at this stuff. And that all happens in your step 10. So if I'm confusing anyone right now, don't worry about it. When we get to step 10, we'll talk more about it. But we're kind of doing step 4 to 9 in step 10. And a lot of it is kind of laid out right here. One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods and get rid of them promptly without regret. If the owner, you guys, of the business or be successful in life, you cannot fool yourself about the values. That's why another person needs to be in your life. God-centered 12-step pillars, not other people who are like on step 3 or 4 or 5. We're talking about people that are God-centered 12-step helping you grow. And I'm not saying you can't have some baby pillars that you grow with along the way, because the baby pillars are important too. You know, you need people that you can grow with at the same time. But when you're both on step 4 and you're both new, don't be fucking making decisions based on each other's advice, because you'll both be drunk. So, it's really important to talk and be honest and go, you know what? I think we should call our sponsors about this one. Or somebody that's 12-stepped and God-centered, okay? And then this is the line I really wanted to get to. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup that caused our failure. Boom, there it is. It's the flaws within my makeup that caused my own failure. Being convinced that because selfish self-centeredness is the root of the troubles. And selfish self-centeredness is driven by 100 forms of fear and self-delusion. So being convinced that self, me, I'm the problem, my selfishness is the problem, it manifests itself in various ways as what had defeated us. So it causes my failure and it defeats me in my life. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. It's about these things that cause my failure. And sometimes they're subtle. Sometimes they're hidden. They're cunning and they're baffling and they're powerful. And if I don't tend to these defects of character, then eventually I'm going to drink, because this is why I drink. So I'll just quote a couple lines just before we get going. Every newcomer soon realizes for themselves that his instincts gone astray has been the primary cause of his destructive drinking and failure at life. It's my instincts that have gone astray. They're outside of normal use. Well, what are our instincts that are gone astray? We'll read it tonight in piece of what we're going to do. So these instincts gone astray have been the primary cause of my destructive drinking and my failure at life. Unless I am now willing to work hard at the elimination of the worst of these, sounds like step 6, doesn't it? Then both peace of mind and sobriety will still elude him. So sobriety is going to elude me if I don't work on this shit? Because this is why I drink. And then the peace of mind is going to elude me if I'm able to stay sober. That all the faulty foundation of his life needs to be torn out and built upon a new bedrock. What's the new bedrock? Well, cornerstone. The cornerstone. This idea of God. God is the cornerstone. He is the new bedrock that we build our lives on. A wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built from God. And that's what we're going to do. That's what step 6 is about. That's why this is the step that lets you grow spiritually. For if the alcoholic fails to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through the work we're talking about and self-sacrifice for others, that's the key. Step 6 is about self-sacrifice. It doesn't just mean I donate my time to you. Okay? It means I'm looking in my inventory and I'm going, holy fuck, my motive's not in check here. I need to sacrifice this selfishness in this moment right now for the benefit of you. So I just found a damaged and unsaleable good that's not been serving me. This is the shit that causes my failure, and I fucking discard it. And I can't just do it. I ask God for help, and I discard that selfishness. And that's why I get so close to God, because that's the real hard shit. But if I'm really willing and I'm honest with myself and I use my whole program as my pillar system and everything, I get through that. And then I start going, holy fuck, is it ever nice not to fight anybody? Is it ever nice not to fight me? Is it ever nice just to lay my head on the pillow knowing I didn't take from the world today? Is it ever nice that I gave to the world today? Holy fuck, I'm having a psychic fucking change here. And life gets really good. But it's hard work. The pains of drinking before sobriety, inner turmoil before serenity. So anyone who's new or anyone who's just growing and you're really wanting to change, there's some pain here. That's why step 6 is about humiliation and humble through pain, change. Because nothing good in life ever comes easy, and the pain of change is great. And I'm not saying it to scare you, because you're growing. And if you grow and you take that pain, it's way more beneficial than the pain of going the old way and living in resentment, living in self-satisfying desires that don't do any good for anybody anyway, except fucking make you feel bad about yourself. That's worse, but it's easier. But living that way for the rest of your life isn't great, because there's even though you can get what you think you need now, there's more than you in there's you in a week. There's you in 6 months. There's you in a year. There's you in 10 years. And through the building of character and taking that progressive pain, you benefit much more in your life in the future. But sometimes the ego goes, fuck, I just want to benefit now. That's why the pain is hard, right? Okay, step 6, 12 and 12. Okay, here we go. Step 6, we are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Think about that line. Entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. What I like doing is I like looking up every word in the big book. And I bet you if I was to look up entirely, it would say like fucking fully, right? Ready, eager to have God remove all these defects of character. It's not just like half-assing this shit. This is like serious business. So this is the step that separates the men from the boys. So declares a well-loved clergyman who happens to be one of AA's greatest friends. He goes on to explain that any person capable of enough willingness and honesty to try repeatedly step 6 on all his faults, without reservations whatever, has indeed come a long way spiritually, and therefore is entitled to be called a man who is sincerely trying to grow in the image and likeness of his own Creator. Like if you're taking notes or underlining or highlighting, that all needs to be really, really noted, okay? And I'm going to repeat it because this is the deal of step 6. This is the whole premise of step 6. Any person capable of enough willingness, high-level fucking willingness, and honesty, rigorous honesty, to try repeatedly, non-stop, step 6 on all his faults, all of them, not half of them, not some of them, not a few of them, all of them, without reservation. So without any reservation, it's just like, okay, I'm not double thinking this. This is like, I do this or I don't do this, but I do this. Has indeed come a long way spiritually. Boom. Because we bring God in, and it happens in the step 10. We continue to watch for this shit. We ask God to remove it at once. Then we talk to someone immediately. And we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Anyway. So sometimes when I get people to the step when I'm sponsoring, I might do this at the We Agnostics chapter, depending. But a lot of times I'll do it here. I will get the person to write out what is the image and likeness of your Creator. I want you to write out everything that you think your Creator is. And most people are going to write like, forgiving and kind and generous and honest and all of these types of principles. And then we look at that and I say, this is what you're to grow in the image and likeness of. Because we talk about the mark in every man, woman, and child, the fundamental idea of God. That is the mark. Because God gave us the mark to guide our lives with, and it comes from deep down within. And when I listen to that mark, I don't miss the mark. But if I miss the mark, which is what the word sin means, then I have to drink. And if I keep missing the mark, if I don't listen to my God guidance system in me, and I keep listening to my head, I'm going to keep missing the mark, and eventually I'm going to create so much of this, I need to drink. So it's important to maybe note what is your Creator. What are the words? What does it look like to you? Because all of the stuff you're going to probably write is right inside of you. But it's often covered up by calamity and pomp and worship of other things. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but He is there. He is in the last analysis. It is there where He may be found. It was so within us. That's what we're talking about. Of course, this often disputed question of whether God can and will, under certain conditions, remove defects of character will be answered with a prompt affirmative by almost any AA member. To him, this proposition will be no theory at all. So this is my line for you. It will be just about the largest fact in his life. So this relinquishment of defects of character, like this line says, it will be the largest fact of my life. God has helped me and restored me to sanity in so many areas of my defects of character, and He's gotten me closer to Him because of my willingness and honesty to try repeatedly to step on all my faults without reservation. Am I a fucking saint? No, far from it. But do I try this at a high level? Yeah. That's why I'm sitting here in front of you. And that's why I love doing this, because it's blows your mind. Blows your mind. Blows your heart open. It's crazy shit. So yeah, the step, it's fucking boom. The step's amazing. It's the best step in the program. This step will change your life if you understand it. He will offer his proof in a statement like this. Sure, I was beaten, absolutely licked. My own willpower just wouldn't work on alcohol. Change of scene, best efforts of my family, friends, doctors, and clergymen got me no place with my alcoholism. I simply could not stop drinking, and no human being could seem to do the job for me. But when I became willing to clean house and then asked a higher power, God as I understood him, to give me a release, my obsession to drink vanished. It was lifted right out of me. In AA meetings all over the world, statements just like this are heard daily. It is plain for everybody to see that each sober AA member has been granted a release from the very obstinate and potentially fatal obsession. So in a very incomplete and literal way, all AAs have become entirely ready to have God remove the mania for alcohol from their lives. And God has proceeded to do exactly that. Perfect. Great. Having been granted a perfect release from alcoholism, why then shouldn't we be able to achieve by the same means a perfect release from every other difficulty or defect? Question mark. Then he goes on to say, this is the riddle of our existence. Why? Because riddles can't be answered. And then it says, the full answer of which may be only in the mind of God. Yeah, so God knows. God knows if he can remove any other difficulty or defect. He knows. Okay. Nevertheless, at least part of the answer is apparent to us. That's the key. God knows. Part of the answer is apparent to us. So when I hear people in meetings talk about the step 6 on the wall, and it says, God removes these defects. Yeah, of course he does. But he just doesn't do it without my help. I hear people all the time in meetings say, well, I don't do anything. God does it. I don't do anything. You know what, bro? You're in for a long fucking miserable ride in recovery if you don't try to work on some of this shit yourself. Or you're just hurting people and hurting yourself. Because we have to do the work and bring it up. And I'll show you all through the literature tonight and next week where it says it. So a guy saying that shit in a room obviously doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Because it's all through the literature that tells me I got to bring this stuff to the surface. I got to be willing and I got to be honest. And I'm the one who has to bring God in and ask for help. Right? When men and women pour so much alcohol into themselves that they destroy their lives, they commit the most unnatural act. Defying their instinctive desire for self-preservation, they seem bent upon self-destruction. They work against their own deepest instinct. As they are humbled by the terrific beating administered by alcohol, the grace of God can enter them and expel their obsession. Here, their powerful instinct to live can cooperate fully with their Creator's desire to give them new life. For nature and God alike abhor suicide. All that means is nature and God both dislike suicide. But most of our other difficulties don't fall under such a category at all. Every normal person wants, for example, to eat, to reproduce, to be somebody in society of his fellows. So now we're just touching on the instincts. So we're going to touch on these instincts over the next couple paragraphs. And then we're going to be flipping to the step 4 in the 12 and 12. And we're going to really highlight what these instincts are. So I just want you to pay attention. Every person wants, for example, to eat, to reproduce, to be somebody in the society of his fellows. And he wishes to be reasonably safe and secure as he tries to attain these things. Indeed, God made him that way. He did not design man to destroy himself by alcohol, but he did give man instincts to help him stay alive. It is nowhere evident, at least in this life, that our Creator expects us to fully eliminate our instinctual drives. So as far as we know, it is nowhere on the record that God has completely removed from any human being all his natural desires. Since most of us are born with an abundance of natural desires, It isn't strange that we often let these far exceed their intended purpose. That's what we're talking about. We let these things exceed their intended purpose. We start using them. Every newcomer soon realizes for himself that his instincts gone astray has been the primary cause of his destructive drinking and failure at life. That's exactly what we're talking about. Okay? When they drive us blindly, can't see them. Or we willfully demand that they supply us more satisfactions or pleasures than are possible or due us. I love that. I'm going to read that again. When they drive us blindly, or we willfully demand that they supply us with more satisfactions or pleasures than are possible or due me. That is the point which we depart from the degree of perfection that God wishes for us here on earth. He wants me to use my instincts that he gave me in this little circle here. This is the God-given circle of my instincts, every human being. And if I start using these instincts outside of the circle, the more outside I use them, the more harm I cause you and me, and the more pain and the more misery. So I got to try to keep them in check. And that's what step 6 is all about, keeping them in check. Because we want to fucking use them, because we willfully demand that we have more money and more women, more sex, more status, whatever it is, right? We want more. Never is enough of what we thought we wanted, But none of that shit ever actually fills us up and makes us happy. But we try. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to wrest happiness and satisfaction out of this world. That is the measure of our character defects, or if you wish, our sins. If we ask God, he will certainly forgive our derelictions, but in no case does he render us white as snow and keep us that way without our cooperation. That is something we are supposed to be willing to work for towards ourselves. He only asks that we try the best that we know to make progress in the building of character. So again, it tells me, God's not going to render me white as snow without my help. That is something I have to be willing to work for myself. Again, God just doesn't do this for me. He might sometimes do 80, 90% of the work, but sometimes he's only going to do 5 or 10% of the work. But the more that he sees that I'm going to work for him, the more grace that I get as I prove that he is actually the employer, and I'm trying to build this altruism in my life. I would like you to go to step 4 in the 12 and 12. And why am I taking us to step 4 in the 12 and 12? Because the step 6 and the step 4 are so tightly tied in this 12 and 12 that now we're going to get into a description of... So you guys who have been with me since the start, I always talk about the second delusion in the big book. That I'm able to wrest happiness and satisfaction out of this world if I only manage well. I'm a victim of a delusion that I can wrest happiness and satisfaction out of this world if I only manage well. So, what does that mean? Again, for, you guys have heard it, some of you haven't. I'm a victim means I'm tricked or I've been duped. Of a delusion, of a lie. That I can wrest, grab, snatch, pry, take happiness and satisfaction out of this world if I only manage well. If I only manipulate this situation and tweak that one and get this and get that person here, and if they give me the right amount of love, and if I just get the right job with the right amount of money and the right amount of status, with the right house, with the right woman at the right time, I'm always trying to play chess, trying to produce this happiness. But it's a facade. It doesn't do it. So I'm always trying to fill up what's wrong on the inside with shit from the outside. And when we talk about the more subtler defects of character, they start listing these things in the step 4 and the 12 and 12. And why I want to bring this 4 into the step 6 is because this is what we're talking about. This is the shit that I can't see. We talk about... we ask our Heavenly Father to remove these things root and branch. Well, the defects are the branches. Those are the things that stick me in the eye that I can see all the time. I know I'm working on anger. I know I'm working on this. I know I'm working on that. But I can't fucking help it, right? But I need to get more down to the root. And some of this step 4 really starts exposing the root. And anyone who was here for this third and fourth column last week for the big book study, I told you how important the third column was. Because the third column actually ties into everything we're going to talk about on the next page and a half. Everything. That third column is all over right here. Okay, I'm going to get started. Step 4. It's actually step 6. Okay. So made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. This inventory stuff never ends. It continues daily, okay? Creation gave us instincts for a purpose. Well, it sounds like what we just read on that step 6. God gave us these other things, right? For my life. So he gives me these instincts for a purpose. For without them, we wouldn't be complete human beings. If men and women didn't exert themselves to be secure in their persons, made no effort to harvest food or construct shelter, there would be no survival. If they didn't reproduce, the earth wouldn't be populated. If there were no social instinct, if men cared nothing for society of one another, there would be no society. So it's telling me about all the things God gave me so I can function as a normal human being, right? I'm able to reproduce, so the sex relation is like a good idea if I want to procreate, right? If men cared nothing for society of one another, there would be no society. People want to interact, and we need these things, right? We need companionship. We need emotional connection. We need all this stuff, and it's perfectly necessary, God-given, and it's right. So these desires, here they are. There's 4 of them. Fuck, don't forget them. These are so important. In my sponsorship, I always go to these 2 pages, and I talk about this shit. Because this is the third column in your step 4 when you do it out of the big book. But everything in your life is going to come from these 4 things. Everything. So we always talk about the 4 defects of character. Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Those 4 defects always come from these 4 things. And then off those defects of character off of those 4 main defects come the subtler defects. Anyway, so here we go. So these instincts, so necessary for our existence, often far exceed their proper functions. So powerfully, blindly, many times subtly. So the stuff is blinding. I can't see some of these defects. Why is it that anger just crops up and next thing you know, I'm fucking blowing up in somebody? And a second ago, I had no idea why I would have even gotten angry. Because something deep in my subconscious sparked and then it scared me, or I lived in some kind of fear, and now I'm lashing out. So this defect of anger was powerful. It was blinding. And it came up subtly. And I didn't even see it. And I could be aware of it, but I can't stop it because it happens. And it's the same with lust. Lust is powerful. It's blinding. And it's subtle. And it will come into play when a pretty girl walks into the room or in your company, and then you just change, and now you're a different person, and now your buddies that you were with, you're ignoring, and now it's all about this woman, right? And you might even, while you're drinking, people probably have done this, fuck my friends, I am now focused in on this. And you ditch your friends because of this defect, powerfully, blindly, subtly. These things will drive us. They'll dominate us. What else will do that? Money and greed. We'll sell our souls for money. What else will do it? Companionship. If I really want somebody, I'll fucking go to any length to get somebody. I'll fucking wear masks. I'll let you walk on me. I'll walk on others. I'll do whatever it takes because I'm trying to wrest happiness and satisfaction out of this world. If I only have that person. And then once I get that person, how do I manipulate them? Because I got them. Now what? Now I need to manipulate and blackmail them mentally and emotionally to give me what I think I need. And then if they don't give me what I think I need, then I'm fucking don't know what to do. So I try to redouble my efforts at more control. Status at work. Trying to look better than somebody else. Throwing somebody under the bus. Even though they're your friend. But you're telling your boss, yeah, they're actually kind of a piece of shit. But then you go and fucking you're best friends to them. Powerfully, blindly, subtly. And like there's so many, and we'll get to some more of them in here. I just want to highlight how powerful these things are. And they work out of fear. We're working in fear. Fear of not getting something we want, or fear of losing something we have. And they will drive us powerfully, blindly, many times subtly. They will drive us, dominate us, and insist upon ruling our lives. So our desires for sex, for material and emotional security, and for an important place in society often tyrannize us. Fuck. Tyrannize. And if you guys get the time, look up every one of those words and see how powerful they are. One of the biggest ones I see that affects people when I do step 5s is social judgment. So many people are so consumed with what everybody else thinks about them. And a lot of their behaviors in their life will be based on that fear of being judged socially in a negative light by their peers. And they will do all sorts of things that they don't even really see that they're doing to try to make themselves look okay. Right? Like lots of women will not leave the house without makeup. Lots of guys won't leave a room without pumping a bit of iron before they leave their house. Lots of guys won't leave the house without doing their hair. Lots of guys won't even drive a vehicle unless it's up to their own standard of what they want to be seen in. Some guys won't wear dirty shoes. Like it's crazy, man. What people won't do and what they will do to be accepted by their peers. You know? And all we're really doing is just kind of not being true to ourselves. We're living lies. Like, I just went on Facebook and fucking Instagram and all this shit for my first time in my life in the last, 2 weeks because of this business stuff I'm doing. Fuck, I want to blow my head off. Like, I don't even know what the hell is going on. Like, I just look at this shit and I'm like, what the fuck did I just enter? Like, just looking at this stuff makes me not feel good about myself. And I'm a pretty confident guy. But just looking at this, and I don't know what it is, it's the energy. I'm just like, I got to stay the fuck away from that social media stuff, me personally. But I just see, I'm looking at these girls' pictures on there. And this one girl, not one picture was real. Not one picture of her was real. And then there's a whole bunch of dudes, the same thing. And I'm like, fuck, man. Like, what are we talking about? That's not even real. No wonder we feel bad about ourselves. Like, fuck. And I'm not here to discredit social media. Like, that's not what I'm here to do. My brain's exploded because I just went on it. And I don't even know what to think about it. And I just see so much fake on it. It's not even real. This is real. This is where we get real. And I need to stay real. Because if I'm not real, man, holy fuck, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't even meditate right now. I'm kind of fucked up because of that shit. So I've been practicing on meditating a little more this week. But that social media is a good example of this powerfully, blindly, subtly. The shit drives us, dominates us, insists upon ruling our lives. You know, can't put the fucking phone down for more than fucking 10 minutes right now. I'm exaggerating, but you get what I'm saying. Thus, when out of joint, man's natural desires cause him great trouble. Practically all the trouble there is. So my natural desires, out of whack, will cause me great trouble. Practically all the trouble there is. And when you think about all your relationships and where you have the most trouble in your life, it's usually due to a relationship. It's probably because your instincts are out of whack. Either you're with your partner trying to draw emotional love and goods from them and pushing them away, but your intentions are good, right? The intentions are good. But I always talk about it's not about intention. It's always about motive. You know, we can trick ourselves with the intention, but intention always hides motive. What's my true motive behind what my actions are here, right? Why am I saying what I'm saying? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I doing it out of the kindness of my heart, or is there a little thread there that I actually want something? Am I cleaning up the house because I just want to clean up the house so that the house is clean? Or am I cleaning up the house so when my wife gets home, she can give me a pat on the back? Or maybe I get a good night of sex out of it if I go get her a bouquet of flowers too. Right? What is the motive? It's always about motive. That's why rigorous honesty. We develop and grasp a manner of living that demands rigorous honesty. Well, what does rigorous mean? Rigorous means accurate. I got to get accurate with my honesty so I can see the truth. And then I can find this damaged and unsaleable good and I discard it without regret. But it's hard because my whole life's been about managing and using emotional and mental blackmail to try to draw things that I think I need. So it's not an easy process, and you can't always see it because it's powerful and blinding sometimes. But once you get the momentum of this, you start being able to see it. And it starts coming, and it's pretty interesting. So no human being, however good, is exempt from these troubles. Nearly every serious emotional problem can be seen as a case of misdirected instinct. So, nearly every serious emotional problem can be seen as a case of misdirected instinct. So think about your own life. What are your emotional problems? Where do you suffer the most in your emotional discomfort or your emotional sobriety? And it's telling me here it's probably a case of misdirected instinct. It's coming from your sex relation. Probably emotional security is the biggest one. And companionship. Or for an important place in society. It's one of them. And then we can dig deeper into those things. And this is what this next couple lines is talking about. So when that happens, our great natural assets, the instincts, have turned into physical and mental liabilities. And I like that part. When I'm worried about all this other shit, I end up getting like sick mentally. And if I get too sick mentally and emotionally, it affects my physical health as well. So some of us get so mentally and emotionally ill with these instincts out of whack, it'll affect our physical health. And I like to bring this up. Anyone who's got Netflix, there's a movie on there called Heal. It's a documentary. And if you got Netflix, note it, check it out. It's a movie called Heal, Heal. And these guys list all these sicknesses. Cause unknown, cause unknown, cause unknown, cause unknown. And really what it boils down to is it's our own internal stress. We cause our own stress. We have a fight and flight, but it's innate. It's built into us, right? Like when we were cavemen. You see a saber-toothed tiger, you either fight him or you fuck off. Now, we still have that built into us, but it doesn't work like that anymore. You know, it's all in these other little subtle ways. So the stuff still happens. The chemical reactions still happen in me, but they're not like fulfilling their full purpose of fight or flight because of the way our society is. So I create these negative toxins in my body where I get stressed, but I don't know what to do. And I'm fighting myself and I'm fighting you. And then I create all this stuff in me. And when you live with negative toxins, it's going to produce negative results. So it starts affecting us physically, which is why we have like umpteen different diseases that the doctors just want to treat with drugs. But if you treat your soul, if you treat your spirit kind with God and with altruism, a lot of these illnesses go away because they're never getting to the root cause. And the doctors always say cause unknown, cause unknown, cause unknown. Well, I don't know. I'm no doctor and I'm no spiritual guru, but I'll tell you, they're probably fucking caused by us and by what society tells us and how we have no ability to fight or flight and we don't know what's going on, but they want us to hit the doctor and take some more anxiety pills and whatever else because we're victims of a delusion that we can wrest happiness and satisfaction out of this world if we only manage well. And we're just sheep. We think we have our own ideas, but most of our ideas are not our own. We learn them all. This is why the book says let go of your old ideas, absolutely. You know, when we rely on the dictates of our higher power, we will live in a present beautiful life no matter what my present circumstances are. Because I get in touch with this. And I start living from a way different place. I'm not living from here. And then I start getting well. I don't know how many alcoholics I've seen come into Alcoholics Anonymous saying, I have chronic anxiety and depression. And then they started running a good program and realized all they had was untreated alcoholism. But they've been told this stuff since they were kids, Since this chick was 11 years old, you're depression and you got anxiety. No, fuck. Most of this shit that it looks like whatever they think it looks like is just untreated alcoholism, or it's just your typical spiritual malady within the world that can be solved by spiritual awakening. I know I'm going a little fucking off topic here, but I truly believe this stuff. And this is kind of the stuff that I'm actually building on my website in my new career. It's all the stuff that I'm talking about. We're building workshops. We're building speaker engagements. We're building like tools and things that are going to help people, because I don't believe society's telling us the truth, man. And we can heal ourselves. Watch that movie. It's a fucking great movie. So, step 4 is a vigorous, look up that word, vigorous and painstaking. So it ain't going to be easy. It's telling me right off the bat, this ain't going to be easy. It's painstaking. And it's an effort to discover what these liabilities in each of us have been and are. Okay, so what are these liabilities? What have they been in my past? And what are they today? That's what it's saying. Okay? We want to find out exactly how, when, and where our natural desires have warped us. So again, the literature, how have my natural desires warped me? When did it happen? And where? So a lot of this, I got to look back down the lifeline of my life. I go back into my childhood and I start digging around and I start looking and seeing what's going on. And I start finding out exactly how, when, and where. These emotional deformities warped us. Maybe my mom was a single mom and I never had a dad. And a lot of my behaviors today stem from me not having a dad and my mom being however she was. Maybe she wasn't around. Maybe I was with a babysitter all the time. Maybe I was sexually assaulted, but I've never brought it up. Maybe whatever. Like, there's so many things. But I think part of the healing journey is looking and then taking it to God. Taking it to God. And allowing God to have these things. And for any of like the real traumas that we've had, and like I know a lot of women have suffered some pretty bad traumas and things in this program and in the world in general. When you get to a place where you're able to use that trauma to help another woman, then things really change. And men too. That's the greatest gift I ever got in this program, was being able to help other men with my own experience. And I haven't suffered like some of the things I've heard in step 5s, but I've suffered whatever I've suffered, and I've been able to be useful to people. We will see how our experience can benefit others. Self-pity will disappear. Those step 9 promises come true from working with other people. And in turn, but we don't realize it, we heal. I start healing my deep inner wounds. And all those symptoms that I was talking about that we get treated for, those start going away because I'm working altruism. I'm working with God. And a lot of that shit, my soul gets soothed. Like the greatest gift you can get in this program, you can do all 12 steps and you're going to get a lot of benefit. But the number one benefit in this program is working with others. That will do everything you ever wanted and way more. But when you first start doing it, it's a pain in your ass. That's why altruism isn't altruism when you start it. It's the act of altruism. And you do it anyway. Why? Because you trust what I'm saying and you trust what the book says. And you just do it anyway. And you keep doing it anyway. Even when your pride and ego says, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. You say, fuck you. I'm going to keep doing it. And you just keep doing it. Because you have to. And I guess you don't have to, but how well do you want to be? The gifts are in sponsorship. The gifts are in working one-on-one. The gifts are in service. That's the truth. So anyway, let's get back to the reading. I'm just going to finish this paragraph and then we'll go for a break. So we want to find out exactly how, when, and where these natural desires warped us. Where? When? How? We wish to look squarely at the unhappiness this has caused others and ourselves. So it's telling me I got to look at the unhappiness in my life. And then I'll find out some information. What am I actually doing when I'm doing all this? I'm doing a searching, fearless, and moral inventory. I'm looking for the causes and conditions. I'm looking for truth. And it's not always going to be fun, I'll tell you. And it warns me, it's going to be painstaking. But the benefits, nothing good comes easy. There's a promise in step 7. We begin to fear pain less. So we will wish to look squarely at the unhappiness this has caused others and ourselves. By discovering what our emotional deformities are, so we're going to be able to discover some more, what they are, we can move towards their correction. So if I don't discover what they are, I can't move towards their correction. And as I go through life, they're going to keep snagging me. I'm going to keep running into the same problems over and over. So I got to be aware and I got to be willing to work on this without reservation. And as I work on these things and I get through them, I build strength and I build fortitude and I build healing within myself because God knows where I'm broken and He knows what I need and He knows how I need to fix it. And it's not like God comes down with a magical incision and boom, you're fixed. He wants me to work on it and fix it. But He's going to present me with the situations. And everything in my life becomes my teacher. So once I get the attitude that everything in my life is my teacher, I don't start running away. I don't start fucking off going here and going there and taking the easy route. I'm like, okay, what do I need to learn here today? How am I going to heal? What kind of pain do I need to go through today to learn this lesson? And maybe today is a week. Maybe today is a month. Maybe you're having trouble with personal relationships, intimate relationships with men or with women, and you can't really figure it out. Well, now it's time to look and see what it is. That's why working with God-centered 12-step pillars on this shit helps. Maybe you have trouble with your career. I don't know what it is, but there's got to be something we all struggle with, but there's always a reason why you struggle with it. Until you learn the lesson, you're going to keep struggling with it. And there's a lesson there. And that's one thing I've learned for sure. There's always a lesson. And if I'm willing to do it and work on it, it always gets revealed. And then what does it do? It takes me up a little closer to God. That's why the step talks about we grow spiritually. And I'm growing in the image and likeness of my Creator. So all through this work, it's always going to God, going to God, going to God, going to God. So, by discovering what these emotional deformities are, we can move towards their correction. Without a willing and persistent effort to do this, there will be little sobriety or contentment for us. That's so important. I work with so many guys that they won't work on their defects of character. They reluctantly come to grips with these serious character flaws that made problem drinkers of in the first place, flaws that must be dealt with, or we will retreat into alcoholism once again. The guys won't work on these things. People won't work on them, and they fucking retreat, and they can't stay sober. They can't stay sober. I'm just going to read something out of the back of step 6 before I shut this reading down. The moment we say no, never, it's the last paragraph on step 6, page 69. The moment we say no, never, our minds close against the grace of God. If I say no, I ain't fucking working on this, it's bad. And then it says delay is dangerous. For me to delay working on some of this shit is dangerous. And then it says, and rebellion may be fatal. Rebellion may be fatal. It is the exact point which we abandon limited objectives that I want and move towards God's will for us. And you guys don't even know how many people I've seen die from rebelling against working on this shit. You know, some of you guys might have heard about Simpson, who just passed away, right? Most of you might know who he is. He was a sponsee of mine who I let go because he wasn't willing to work on any of this shit. Simpson had some of the best sponsors in the city of Calgary, and he wasn't willing to work on this stuff and bring God in. And we all know what happened to him. And I can list so many more. Because this is the stuff we got to work on, man. This is the stuff that keeps us sober, but it actually gives us the great life. Like, there is a really good life here. And it takes some work, right? And if you're the real deal alcoholic and addict, you don't really have a choice anyway. So you may as well have the pain of growth versus the other pain. And we all know what that other pain is like. Fuck, who wants that shit anymore? You know? And the more that we can like band together and work for God, fuck, I think this can just be way better. This fellowship can just kick ass. So without a willing and persistent effort to do this, there can be little sobriety or contentment for us. I'm looking for contentment. I'm not worried about drinking or using drugs anymore. I want more contentment, so I seek this stuff even today. So what am I doing these days? I'm doing a fear and resentment inventory. 5 years in, I've already done a couple set of steps, but I do this shit constantly because I don't want to be snagged. I just want to live the best life I can, and I want to be of service. So I'm doing exactly what new people do. And I continue to do this. Why? Because that's what we're supposed to do. So without a searching and fearless moral inventory, most of us found that the faith that works in daily living is still out of reach. I want the faith that works in daily living. And I don't want it to be out of reach. So that's why I do this stuff. And there's more to this in the step 7. Step 7's fucking great. I can't wait to do that one in a couple weeks. Page 43, second paragraph. Before tackling the inventory problem in detail, let's have a closer look at what the basic problem is. Simple examples like the following take on a world of meaning when we think about them. Suppose a person places sex desire ahead of everything else. In such a case, this imperious urge can destroy his chances for material and emotional security, as well as his standing in the community. Another may develop such an obsession for financial security that he wants to do nothing but hoard money. Going to the extreme, he can become a miser or even a recluse who denies himself both family and friends. So those are like good examples. Like there's guys that are so sex mad that all they care about is, sex and women, and they don't care about anything else or porn. There's some guys that all they care about is making money, and they just think that money's going to make them happy, and that's all they really give a shit about, right? And the stuff ends up being our demises at a certain point, and we're alcoholics and addicts. We don't do anything like moderately. If I'm going to work on making money, I'm fucking working on making money, right? If I'm working on anything, I'm doing it to the extreme. It doesn't really matter what it is. Like, I don't know how many alcoholics are perfectionists, but to some degree or another, I think most of us are. It's pretty common thread through most of my step 5s that I've done with people is even people that are more on the depressive, even they're somewhat perfectionists in a way, which is what drives part of their self-pity and depression, because they're not living up to what they want to live up to. So it drives them the other way, right? And then egocentric alcoholics are perfectionists too, and they beat themselves up, but they do it differently. Okay. Going to the extreme, he can become a miser or recluse who denies himself both family and friends. Nor is the quest for security always expressed in terms of money. How frequently have we seen a frightened human being determined to depend completely on a stronger person for guidance and protection? This weak one, failing to meet life's responsibilities with his own resources, never grows up. Disillusionment and helplessness are his lot. In time, all his protectors either flee or die, and he was once more left alone and afraid. Fuck, that's a great example. Not just women, but I'm going to use women. There's men too. but I'm going to use women because I see this in women. They'll rely on a man so much for whatever it is that they think they need. And they'll do anything to get a man. And then they'll depend completely upon this strong male that they finally got in their life for guidance and protection. This weak one, failing to meet life's responsibilities on her own, with her own resources, never grows up. And what I want to highlight there is own resources. So as we get in touch with our own unsuspected inner resource, if I'm relying on somebody so heavily that all I want is them to fucking fill me, I'm not relying on any of my own resources. I'm relying solely, I am wresting happiness and satisfaction out of this world by fucking managing well. I'm a victim of a delusion that I can wrest happiness and satisfaction out of this world if I only have this guy love me or this woman love me the right way. And then I'm going to do things in my life to try to make this person like me more. But I'm kind of selling myself out, which is why I like the word resource. I fail to depend on my own truth, my own inner resource. And I never grow up. Disillusionment and helplessness. Fuck, how many people do you see that with? This fucking paragraph is fucking blanketed across Alcoholics Anonymous with men and women. In time, all his protectors will either flee or die. And he is once more left alone and afraid. Because we're not getting in touch with ourselves. We keep relying on things from outside of ourselves. Once we get in touch with this truth in here, and we start relying on this, it's funny how we rely on this, we bring it to help others, and then God provides the things that we always wanted when we stop trying to get them. That's why I say if you're trying to come into program to get happiness, be careful, because that will elude you for your whole life. If you're coming in the program to find a man and get happy and get this money and get this job, you're fucking heading down the wrong trail. You come in here, you strip yourself down through this work, and you become of service. You start working for God, you start working for the people, and watch how God and the people start working for you. Once you fucking let go of the shit that you think you need, God provides you with what you need, and then he often throws you shit that you want. But never forget where it came from. And it always comes through service. Always comes through relinquishment, self-sacrifice for others. There's the line in the book, common sense thus becomes uncommon sense. Well, common sense tells me I need to go out and get this and get that, grab this and bring it into my life because I need to be happy. No. It is by self-forgetting that one finds. Step 11, prayer. If you really want to find, it is by self-forgetting and giving and understanding that step 11 prayer at a deep level and living the step 11 prayer, not in a theoretical idea, but actually living the lines in that and meditating on that prayer and trying to be that prayer, because that prayer is the image and likeness of your Creator. So just again, if you're coming here to get happy, I encourage you to pray to get rid of that idea. Pray what the prayers say in the book, to be of service. God, show me how to be of service is kind of what we need to do here. And it's worked for my life. And I know lots of people in the program who have dedicated their life to service, and it's working really well in theirs. But the ones who keep trying to grab and pry and manipulate and smash shit around to get what they want, they're fucking miserable, man. And a lot of them go back to drink, because that is pure alcoholism. You can only handle that shit for so long before you need relief. And I get my ease and comfort today out of God's grace. Anyway, that's a great paragraph. It's probably why I got 2 stars in it and it's underlined. So we have also seen men and women go power mad, who devote themselves to attempting to rule their fellows. These people often throw to the winds every chance to legitimate security and happy family life. Whenever the human being becomes a battleground for the instinct, there can be no peace. Love that. If the human being is a battleground for these instincts, there's going to be no peace. And it makes it hard to meditate. Because when you're living in a battleground, it's going to be hard to meditate. And part of meditation comes through quieting the mind. But if the instincts are on rampage, my mind's not quiet. And it's hard to meditate. Then I just think I can't meditate. So I just throw in the towel on meditation. Well, you can't throw in the towel on meditation if you're an alcoholic addict, because it's part of the directions. It takes practice. But before you can probably get good at it, you got to understand inventory. And when you understand the literature in its whole, like I do, you'll see that Bill W. always writes about self-examination or inventory before he talks about prayer and meditation, because it's important to do first. But that is not all of the danger. This is a great one too. Fuck. Every time a person imposes his instincts unreasonably upon others, unhappiness follows. Love that line. That is the essence of step 10. Step 10, I continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Why? Because I'm probably going to impose my instincts unreasonably upon you. So I got to watch for those things. When they crop up, it says in step 10, I ask God at once to remove it. First solution is I ask God to take it and remove it. Then it says we talk to someone immediately. So then I can actually follow a process with my sponsor or pillar. And then I can discard the damage or unsaleable good that I'm going to use without regret. Then I make my amends quickly if I harmed anyone. Then I resolutely turn my thoughts to someone I can help. Step 10 right there. Because I will unreasonably impose my instinct on somebody else. And unhappiness always follows. Always, man. We make decisions based on self, is what this is saying. That later place us in a position to be hurt. Seemingly they hurt us without provocation. Anyway, if the pursuit of wealth tramples upon people who have been in the way, then anger, jealousy, and revenge are likely to be aroused. Love that. If sex runs riot, there is a similar uproar. Demands made upon other people for too much attention, protection, and love can only invite domination or revulsion in the protectors themselves. Two emotions quite as unhealthily as the demands that evoke them. That is so fucking common. People will place too much demands on other people. For attention, for protection, for love. And what does it do? It only invites domination or revulsion. So that's why we need this centered piece of us to be guiding us. Because if I'm going in weak, I'm only inviting you to dominate me. And if I'm going in weak, then I'm only inviting you to fucking push me away. Because it sickens me. But if I go in confident with who I am, self, I don't invite domination and you're not going to push me away. You're actually going to go, fuck, look at this person who's confident in who they are. That's what I fucking want. I want to walk shoulder to shoulder with somebody. I don't want somebody who's fucking so dependent on me. Right? And this is why in this book, we're going to read it tonight. The primary thing that we fail to recognize is our utter inability to form a true partnership with any other human being. First, I can't form a partnership with me because I don't even know me. So this is the first partnership I got to work with is me and my sponsor, and then me and God too at the same time. And then I start learning how to build a real relationship based in God as the foundation. God is the foundation of this whole relationship with me and with you. And when I have God as the foundation, then I don't walk into these things. Like I can guarantee you that almost everybody can relate to this line here. Because that's what we do. And we'll go in and people please. And then we're only inviting it. And then we teach people how to treat us. And if I teach people how to treat me, then I'm going to fall into the traps. So what do we need to do? We need to find out exactly how, when, and where these emotional deformities warped us. Why am I allowing people to treat me like that? Why do I treat myself like that? Well, step 4 is a vigorous and painstaking effort to discover what these liabilities in each of us have been and are. We want to find out exactly how, when, and where these natural desires warped us. I wish to look squarely at the unhappiness and pain. So if you are this person that you make demands upon other people and you can't seem to be in a relationship, start looking at the pain. Find out exactly how, when, and where in your history did this happen. Maybe you were abandoned as a kid all the time. Maybe you didn't get what you needed as a child. Maybe there's something you can do to build strength out of this. But if you keep going through life without working on this, it's just going to keep happening. It's just going to continually create disturbance and frustration in your life. That's why it's important to dig into this stuff, and then we get closer to God. In the We Agnostic story, when Bill turns his will and his life over to the care of God, in that he tumbles out of bed, and then it says, you know what? His cornerstone was fixed in place. The foundation of God was fixed in place. No later vicissitude is shaking it. No life's happening. Shook Bill's God in his life. And then it talks about he couldn't drink for one, even if he wanted to. But the important line in that is, what is this but a miracle of healing? It healed him because he turned his whole will and his life over. And as we dig into the pain and unhappiness and our hurt and our fractured parts of us, we start taking these pieces that are broken and make them whole, and we're healed with God's help. What is that but a miracle of healing? Bill had it in a big, profound spiritual experience. We grow into it more slowly, and it takes work. For if the alcoholic fails to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through the work and self-sacrifice for others, he will not meet the certain trials and low spots in life ahead. For if he fails to work, he will certainly drink. And if he drinks, he will certainly die. With us, period, it's just like that. That's what happens by the end of it if we don't work on this stuff. There is a drink there. And to drink for us is to die. And then the other line I want to highlight is faith. To be vital. Faith alone is insufficient. This idea of prayer is not enough. To be vital, to give me life, must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish constructive action. So it means I'm sacrificing self, but it comes through the work and the healing part of what we're talking about here. Okay, when an individual's desire for prestige becomes uncontrollable, whether in the sewing circle or at the international conference table, other people suffer and often revolt. This collision of instincts can produce anything from a cold snub to a blazing revolution. In these ways, we are set in conflict not only with ourselves, but with other people who have instincts too. So I got a little story about this one. So this is me, kinda. This is one of my instincts that gets out of whack. So even in recovery, a couple years ago, I was shooting pool, and I'm a really good pool player, and I'm shooting pool at Ducky's Pub with a bunch of AA guys, and I was just cleaning house, kicking ass that night, playing pool. And the place is packed, and there's women and dudes everywhere, and I'm feeling like the king, because fucking no one can beat me. And then these girls are kind of running around fucking chatting with me and shit, so I was kind of, running the table and then talking to these girls. This is about 3 years ago. And then my buddies who were there are like, dude, you got a fucking game. Like, we're up. People want to play. And I'm like, fuck, chill out, man. Chill out. Don't you see I'm fucking chatting to some girls here? Fucking chill out. Anyway, I come back over to the table and they're fucking playing pool on my table. And I'm like, what the fuck? My buddies are like, dude, you took too long. And I'm like, dude, it's my fucking table. And then all my buddies said, you know what? Fuck you. And they threw the pool cues down and fucking I was there playing pool by myself for the rest of the night. I just felt like a total piece of shit. And that's what we're talking about, right? When an individual's desire for prestige becomes uncontrollable, whether in the sewing circle or at the international conference table, doesn't matter. People aren't into that shit. So we got to be careful with how we're presenting ourselves and the defects that we have. And then, I ended up having to make amends out of that. And it was stupid. And I felt humiliated. And this is what step 6 is about. It's about being humiliated and humbled through pain and then willing to change. So then I tried to change my behaviors more and more and more after that. It's still one of my defects, but it doesn't usually cause me too much trouble. Sometimes I'm a smart ass and it'll cause me some trouble, but for the most part, it doesn't cause me too much trouble anymore. In these ways, we are set in conflict not only with ourselves, fighting ourselves first, but with other people who have instincts too. Alcoholics especially should be able to see that instinct run wild in themselves is the underlying cause of their destructive drinking. We have drunk to drown feelings of fear, frustration, and depression. We all have done that. We have drunk to escape the guilt of passions. And then we have drunk again to make more passions possible. We don't need many reasons. Any reason's good enough. We have drunk for vainglory, that we might the more enjoy foolish dreams of pomp and power. This perverse soul sickness is not pleasant to look upon. Instincts on rampage balk at investigation. That's what I love that one. Instincts on rampage balk at investigation. And sometimes this is consciously, but most of the time it's unconsciously. You can't even see what's happening. And then you kind of just push it away subconsciously because your instincts don't really want you to look at them. The minute we make a serious attempt to probe them, we are liable to suffer severe reactions. That's so true too. Once you start probing these things that you don't really want to look at, you're liable to suffer severe reactions. There's some pain under there. It told me though, it's going to be vigorous and painstaking. If you want to grow and you want to learn how to turn it over and get closer to God, this stuff's necessity. And it's necessity to stay in touch with your God-centered 12-step pillars and do your inventories. Talk about your problems. I'm a huge fan of talking to your pillars at least like every day or every couple days. Just let them know how life's going. And when shit's hitting the fan, you for sure talk to them. And when shit's going good, you still talk to them. Because stuff gets revealed, right? But yeah, instincts on rampage are going to balk an investigation. The minute we make a serious attempt to probe these things, we are liable to suffer severe reactions. And if you work with sponsees who you see the defects in them, and you got to go in for the kill and start working on some of this shit, a lot of the sponsees they're going to get all prideful. They're going to get defensive and they're not really going to want to go there. That's why the sponsor has to give a fuck more about your life than your feelings. And that's why the relationship has to be built on authentic trust so that the sponsee who gets offended understands that the sponsor or the pillar really fucking actually loves them. And they're not saying it out of a place of spite or superiority. It's a relationship that's built on life and death, but it's built on authentic trust and rigorous honesty. And then the sponsee usually is the one who's going to bail on the relationship because they're not as experienced and pride is their biggest block. But if they're really willing and they can have an open conversation, sometimes they can get talked back off the ledge. And then that experience helps them later on and just develops the relationship stronger. If temperamentally we are on the depressive side. So, if some of you guys are the depressive, listen up. We are apt to be swamped with guilt and self-loathing. We wallow in this messy bog, often getting a mishappen of painful pleasure out of it. As we morbidly pursue this melancholy activity, We may sink to such a point of despair that nothing but oblivion looks possible as a solution. It's pretty fucking descriptive. Here, of course, we have lost all perspective and therefore all genuine humility. For this is pride in reverse. This is not a moral inventory at all. It is the very process by which the depressive have so often been led to the bottle and extinction. So if you're the depressive and you relate to this line, this paragraph, you have to understand that the minute you start going into this train of thought, you're headed down severe banana peel trail. And once you get to such a point, you're fucked. Okay? Because any excuse is going to give yourself to have a drink or a drug. So if you really want to stay sober and you see this stuff happening, you got to take effort. You got to take action right now. And it's pick up the phone, and it's find somebody to help, it's get to a meeting, and it's get the fuck out of that banana peel trail thinking. Because as it says here, you will morbidly pursue this melancholy activity. You're going to pursue it morbidly. And then you sink to such a point of despair that nothing but oblivion looks possible. So you're drinking deliberately. Because you've given yourself the excuse that it's so bad, I just need to drink now. But this can be caught sooner. Okay, so for this is pride in reverse. This is not a moral inventory at all. It is the very process by which the depressive has so often been led straight to the bottle or drug and extinction. It's telling me you could die. If, however, our natural disposition is inclined to self-righteousness or grandiosity, that's me, our reaction will be just the opposite. We will be offended at AA's suggested inventory. No doubt we shall point with pride to the good lives that we thought we led before the bottle cut us down. We shall claim that our own serious character defects, if we think we have any at all, had been caused chiefly by our excessive drinking. That all describes me pretty well. Because I did. I had $1 million house. I had a lot of things going for me. I built a business. I thought I had pretty good character traits. I thought anger was a trait. I thought self-righteousness was a good trait. So that's me to a T. So this being so, we think it logically follows that sobriety, first and last and all the time, is the only thing we need to work for. We believe that our one-time good characters will be revived the moment we quit alcohol. If we were pretty nice people all along, except for drinking, what need is there for a moral inventory now that we are sober? So we also clutch to another wonderful excuse for avoiding inventory. Our present anxieties and troubles, we cry, are caused by the behavior of other people. That's perfect. How many of us blame other people? I'm going to reread that. Our present anxieties and troubles, we cry, are caused by the behavior of other people. People who really need a moral inventory. We firmly believe that if they'd only treat us better, we'd be all right. Therefore, we think that our indignation is justified and reasonable. Indignation, a form of anger. And it's reasonable. But it's not. We rationalize. Rational lies. Rationalization is our number one arch enemy. We will rationalize and justify the most errant nonsense to suit our actions or our inaction. The alcoholic life is the only normal one. We can't differentiate actual truth from actual false, which is why we need to call a pillar and a sponsor and get the truth. Look at the facts, face the facts, look at the truth about the stock and trade or situation, find some damaged or unsaleable good, discard without regret. The second step in step 10. Step 10 process. That our resentments are the right kind. We aren't the guilty ones, they are. I love that. Resentments. The right kind, hey? Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. For we had not been only mentally and physically ill, we had been spiritually sick. It is plain that life includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. This business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found it as fatal. For when we harbor these feelings, we shut ourselves off to the sunlight of the Spirit. Anger, the dubious luxury of normal people. Like, it's just, anger and resentment are not acceptable for us. They're not acceptable for us. So they're never the right kind. So if you're living in resentment and you think you're justified, you're wrong. We have to do some work. And the truly humble can't be humiliated anyway. So as you get in touch with your true self, you won't be able to be really humiliated. People aren't going to piss you off like they do. Because they're only pissing you off because your instincts are out of whack. You're worried about something, or you're worried you're not going to get something. Okay, so at this stage of the inventory proceedings, our sponsor comes to our rescue. They can do this. For they are the carriers of AA's tested experience with step 4. They comfort the melancholy one by first showing him that his case is not strange or different, that his character defects are probably not more numerous or worse than those of anyone else's in AA's. That's pretty nice. The sponsor promptly proves that by talking freely and easily without exhibitionism about his own defects, past and present, this calm yet realistic stock taking is immensely reassuring. The sponsor probably points out that the newcomer has some assets which can be noted along with his liabilities. This tends to clear away morbidly and encourage balance. As soon as he begins to be more objective, the newcomer can fearlessly rather than fearfully look at his own defects. And I really like that, talking openly about your defects and just doing it anyway. And baby pillars, you guys can talk amongst yourselves about this stuff too and grow with each other. You know? The sponsors of those who feel they need no inventory are confronted with quite another problem. This is because people who are driven of pride, if you're driven of pride, listen up, of self, unconsciously blind themselves to their liabilities. So if you're driven by pride, you will unconsciously blind yourself to your own liabilities. And I always say you can't see self with self. A lot of times if you're stuck in self, you can't see self. That's why we need pillars and sponsors. They can see that shit. But I'm not able to see it all the time by myself, of myself. These newcomers scarcely need comforting. The problem is to help them discover a chink in the walls their ego is built through which the light of reason can shine. Underline and highlight that because it's beautiful. So, what are we saying there? The problem is to help them discover a chink in the walls that their ego is built through which the light of reason can shine. Our ego has built us all these protective walls, and we need to find a chink in this armor so that the light of God can shine in. So we talk about old ideas, emotions, and attitudes. We build these walls. Some of them are judgments that we know are bad for us, but some of these are judgments that we think are good for us. And to have an open mind is the gateway to true knowledge, right? Remember, we agnostics? So we got to be open to fucking looking at any little dark cranny and be willing to let God in anywhere. And so I just want to highlight, just because you think something's good for you doesn't mean it's good for you. It's just as blocking to God's grace as something that you think's bad for you that you know you need to relinquish. So sometimes when I work with guys, I want to see their inventory on stuff they think that's good for them. What belief systems or ideas you think are treating you well, that are good for you. And then we talk about them. Maybe some of them are good for you. But when you get to a place where you don't actually know what's good for you or bad for you, God is everything or He's nothing, then things really open up and change. We start knocking down the walls and letting God just kind of do His thing and build with us and do with us as He will. First off, they can be told that the majority of AA members have suffered severely from self-justification. During their drinking days, for most of us, self-justification was the maker of excuses. Excuses, of course, for drinking and all kinds of crazy and damaging conduct. We had made the invention of alibis a fine art. We had to drink because times were hard or times were good. We had to drink because at home we were smothered in love or got none at all. We had to drink because at work we were great successes or dismal failures. We had to drink because our nation had won a war or lost at peace, and so it went, ad infinitum. We thought conditions drove us to drink. Love this one. I thought conditions drove me to drink. And when we tried to correct these conditions and found that we couldn't to our entire satisfaction, because you can't control everything, our drinking went out of hand and we became alcoholics. It never occurred to us that we needed to change ourselves to meet conditions, whatever they were. That's what step 10 teaches us. But in AA, we slowly learned that something had to be done about our vengeful resentments, self-pity, and unwarranted pride. We had to see that every time we played the big shot, we turned people against us. We had to see that when we harbored grudges and planned revenge for such defeats, we were really beating ourselves with the club of anger that we had tended to use on others. We learned that if we were seriously disturbed, our first need was to quiet the disturbance, regardless of who or what we thought caused it. Fuck, that's so important what we're reading right there. It doesn't matter what the disturbance is. You just learn that if you're seriously disturbed, you quiet the disturbance, regardless of who or what caused it. Give yourself some cool down time. You never have to respond or react or give an answer right now. There's no rule in life that says you need an answer right now from me. I might need to step away and calm down and cool down. Maybe I give it a day or two, because I will react. And when I react out of anger or spitefulness, it's usually not good, because I'm acting out of full-blown self. And like step 10 in the 12 and 12, it's a spiritual axiom that every time I'm disturbed, the problem is within me. It's not you. Even though I think you're causing me the problem's me. It goes back to what we were reading in the beginning of step 4. Exactly how, where, and when these emotional liabilities warped me. Why am I feeling like this? Why is this situation bugging me so bad? Why can't I accept it? What is it about this person's shortcomings or viewpoints or their opinions that I can't accept? And then I got to do inventory, and I usually find it's something to do with one of those instincts again. Okay, to see how erratic emotions victimized us. Love this. Often took a long time. We could perceive them quickly in others, but only slowly in ourselves. First of all, we had to admit that we had many of these defects, even though such disclosures were painful and humiliating. Where other people were concerned, we had to drop the word blame from our speech and thought. Not just speech, but thought too. This required great willingness even to begin. So I'm just going to reread that, because that's some serious shit. To see how erratic emotions victimized us. It is the emotions, right? We feel something and then we get frustrated or we get mad or we get angry or whatever the emotion is, and now we're ready to react, right? And we can perceive them quickly in others, but only slowly in ourselves. First of all, we had to admit that we had some of these defects, because without admitting you're an alcoholic, you can't work on being a solution. Without admitting you have the defect, you can't work on correction. And if you want to keep telling yourself, well, I don't have that. I don't have that. I'm not self-righteous anger. I'm not lustful. I'm not whatever it is. If you keep pushing it away, it'll keep pushing its way back into your life. So once you do like a rigorous inventory and you actually admit this painful and humiliating thing that, yes, I have that. It's not even painful and humiliating, really. It's painful and humiliating to your ego. But when you just accept it, the power of that goes away. And then you're able to go, you know what? Yeah, I can work on this now. But if you resist it, it will always persist. And where other people were concerned, we had to drop the word blame from our speech and thought. This required great willingness, even to begin. But once over the first 2 or 3 high hurdles, the course ahead began to look easier. For we had started to get a perspective on ourselves, which is another way of saying we were gaining in humility. I'm starting to see the truth in what and who I really am. That comes straight out of step 5 in this book. I'm getting a perspective on who I really am. The 4th column in your step 4. I get to see the truth from an entirely different angle. And I'm starting to see, holy shit, I'm not the person I thought I was. But I don't have to be that person anymore. And that's where step 6 comes in. I get to try to change through the pain of change. For we had to start to get a perspective on ourselves, which is another way of saying we were gaining in humility. You know, humiliation and humble through pain is what we're talking about. Of course, the depressive and the power driver are personality extreme types which AA and the whole world abound. Often these personalities are just as sharply defined as the examples given. But just as often, some of us will fit more or less into both classifications. Human beings are never quite alike. So each of us, when making an inventory, will need to determine what his individual character defects are. So you need to look with your sponsor and yourself and pillars and find out what your defects are. Okay? And then having found the shoes that fit, you ought to step into them and walk with new confidence that he is now at least on the right track. It's nice to be able to find out what the problem is. But you got to do more than just see. Now you got to work on it. But it's a relief to find out what some of this stuff is through inventory. Then you can move towards its correction. So now let's ponder the need for a list of the more glaring personality defects all of us have in varying degrees. To those having religious training, such a list would set forth serious violations of moral principles. Some others will think of this list as defects of character. Still others will call it an index of maladjustments. Some will become quite annoyed if there is talk about immorality. Let alone sin. But all who are in the least reasonable will agree upon one point, that there is plenty wrong with us alcoholics, about which plenty will have to be done if we are to expect sobriety, progress, and any real ability to cope with life. To avoid falling into confusion over the names these defects should be called, let's take a universally recognized list of major human failings. The 7 deadly sins of pride, greed, lust, anger, gluttony, envy, and sloth. It is not by accident that pride heads the procession, for pride leading to self-justification, always spurred by conscious or unconscious fears. I love that. Pride leading to self-justification, always spurred by conscious or unconscious fears. I love that. Unconscious fears. Can't see them. Powerfully, blindly, subtly. The shit is in your subconscious. We want to find out exactly how, when, and where this stuff happens. Why? Why am I fearful? Conscious fears is the basic breeder of most human difficulties. The chief block to true progress. Oh, that's so important, all that shit. Fear is the number 1 offender for this alcoholic. Resentments are, fear is. Because if I don't deal with fear, resentments will come, and then resentments will take me out. So I got to deal with fear constantly. So pride lures us into making demands upon ourselves or upon others which cannot be met without perverting or misusing our God-given instincts. So I like that. Pride lures. So my pride is like dangling a little carrot here, luring me, okay, into making demands upon myself or upon you, which cannot be met without perverting. And I like the word perverting. It means to alter from its original state. So you manipulate it. and you alter it to suit yourself. Or misusing your God-given instincts. So I'm going to rationalize and justify the most errant nonsense to suit my actions or my inaction. That's why sponsorship is so important again. When the satisfactions of our instincts, the satisfactions of these selfish desires, the instincts, for sex, security, and society becomes the sole object of our lives, then pride steps in to justify our excesses. Yeah, dude, that's so true. All of that shit is so true. Pride will always justify anything I do. I like to call it false integrity. I will hold on to a lie, a false lie that I create in my head, because I got to live with myself. And I need to be okay with some of what I do. So I hold on to this false integrity and I lie to myself because I got to look in the mirror and live with myself. But if I keep doing this shit because I'm missing the mark, I'm not listening to my inner resource. I'm seeking selfish desires, trying to fill this hole. But I know that a lot of this action is wrong. And as I miss the mark, I miss the mark, I miss the mark. If I miss the mark too much, I have to drink. I have to drink because I'm going against what my God consciousness inside of me knows. And if I can get in touch with that God consciousness and listen to that, then I say no to this stuff. Even though it's hard to say no to. That is the fucking premise of step 6. Trying with a will, without reservation. Even though it's hard, because my ego wants what it wants. I always want to get this relief this way, but now I'm changing and it's hard to not go that way. That's why step 6 is hard, but it has major benefits. So all these failings generate fear, a soul sickness in its own right. Then fear in turn generates more character defects. Fuck. Unreasonable fear that our instincts will not be satisfied. These things that I think are going to make me happy, I get worried that they're not going to satisfy me. That I can't get them. Drives us to covet the possessions of others, to lust for sex and power, to become angry when our instinctive demands are threatened. This is all shit in the subconscious. It happens so quick. To be envious when the ambitions of others seems to be realized while ours are not. We eat, drink, and grab for more of everything than we need, fearing we shall never have enough. And with genuine alarm at the prospect of work, the genuine alarm at the prospect of actually having to work, we stay lazy. We loaf and procrastinate, or at best work grudgingly under half steam. These fears are the termites that ceaselessly devour the foundations of whatever sort of life we are trying to build. I love that. Think of termites ceaselessly devouring your sobriety life and your God-connected life. If you don't deal with the fear, these things are like little tiny fucking things you can't see, and it just ceaselessly devours your foundation. And then you unravel. Fears have to be dealt with. And most fears, as if you've done your fear inventory, are not even real. We have a whole process in the step 4 in the big book to deal with fear. And it says we commence to outgrow fear. But this shit is like, it's ingrained in me, right? But am I willing to go this way, or am I willing to go the easy way? Because if I go this easy way, I'll probably sink into this this messy bog and get this mishap and a painful pleasure out of it. And then I'll sink morbidly, pursue this melancholy activity, blah, 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 and then oblivion only looks possible. Like the downward trajectory of some of this thinking is bad, right? We got to be on the beam. And every moment's going to set you up for the next moment in your life. So if you're living in fear or you're living in negativity, you got a choice to turn it around. And it might always be easy to turn around, but you got 2 choices. You try to turn it around and move positively, progressively through the pain, or you go through the unremitting suffering of pain and risk drinking and risk unraveling and trying to start like over again. And I don't mean just over like you relapsed, but if any of you have fallen off the beam of spirituality by falling into morbid repression or regression, It's hard to get back up on that beam. It's a lot of work. It's just easier to just maybe fall off it a bit and get back on top and make the decision like, fuck you. I'm not doing that today, defects. I'm not letting you get me today. I got to do it. And I know there's times where I've said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going all the way down the circle. I'm going right down the cycle. And once I go down the cycle, it's like this. It's like, holy fuck. I got to like get momentum and try to get back up. And finally I get there and I'm like, fuck, why did you even do that? You knew better. Because I'm fucking alcoholic. Sometimes it just seems like it's a nice place to go, but it never is, right? And then once I'm in that, it's like, fuck, I've always been here and I'm always going to be here. But that's not true either. Okay, so anyway, I think I'm going to have to stop after... I'm going to read one more paragraph. Then I'm going to stop because I went too long. But I think that's okay because I think I can get through everything next week that I need to get through. Okay, so when AA suggests a fearless moral inventory, it must seem to every newcomer that more is being asked of him than he can do. Both his pride and his fear beat him back every time he tries to look within himself. Pride says you need not pass this way, and fear says you dare not look. But the testimony of AAs who have really tried a moral inventory is that pride and fear of this sort turn out to be the boogeyman and nothing else. Love that. It's all bullshit. Once we have complete willingness to take inventory and to exert ourselves to do the job thoroughly, a wonderful light falls upon this foggy scene. As we persist, a brand new kind of confidence is born. I love that because it's true. You know, a brand new light falls upon this foggy scene. It starts to be clearing up. You start to get clarity of what's going on here. And then as you persist, right, a brand new kind of confidence gets born. You start gaining in momentum and actual real humility. And the sense of relief at finally facing ourselves is indescribable. So now you start feeling, fuck, this journey of self-reflection and self-realization starts to become fun. It's like indescribable. That's where you want to get to, because then that starts driving your momentum. It starts picking you up and pushing you along. Instead of you like walking grudgingly through this, you start to get pushed. These are the first fruits of step 4 and step 6. Okay, I'm going to end there on page 50.